welcome to the Bearfoot Miniatures rundown of the Salamanders Legion. And like all of these videos, we'll be running through the Legion trait of Blood and Fire for the Salamanders. We'll be going through the war gear, Warlord Traits, advanced reaction, unique units, I should say Salamanders special units, the unique units that are in the book, including the Primarch at the end. And yeah, it's the general overview of Salamanders is that, well, the internet tells me that they're completely unplayable, except for a few people that have a more nuanced view, which would say that they are not at the top end of the legions. They are, in fact, one of the weaker legions, but I would say certainly not unplayable. They sort of struggle because they have this mid-close ranged shooting that is their specialty, right? It's the flamers, melter guns, things like that. And this edition and last edition, they very much struggled with the fact that, well, the game is either long-range shooting or killing people in close combat. And they have benefits to their close mid-ranged that I really like. They've got benefits to survivability, benefits to leadership, things like that. But I just think the shooting that they can do just sort of puts them in a bit of a hard place for the players who really want to lean into the flamer melter weapons that they do really well with, but they just not got some of the overall strengths that other legions now have. But certainly not unplayable. I definitely come down on that side. They've got some very good things they can do, some nasty tricks that you can see happen to me in the Zometalis video when I played Matt with his Salamanders, and it didn't go too badly for him, I'll say that one. So, Legion Astartes Salamanders gives you Blood and Fire. When rolling to wound against a model with this special rule, with any attack inflicted by a flame, melter, plasma or volkite weapon, reduce the roll to wound by 1. It doesn't affect the strength of the attack, only the roll to wound, so it still doubles out your toughness 4 mooks if they shoot in melter, which is really the only difference of strength versus roll to wound will come into it. In addition, if it's got more than 1 wound or hull point, it gains the It Will Not Die 6+ special wound. So Praetors, Centurions, things like that, gains It Will Not Die 6+. Now this is, although it's only on a 6+, it's a nice little tiny buff to have. I'm not a massive fan of It Will Not Die on units, because although it affects that one model, a multi-wound, say, Pyroclast squad, you're only ever going to be taking wounds on one model unless it's a full unit of characters. So it doesn't come into it as much as you would think. The 6+, again, not that great of a roll on, obviously on a D6, it's a 1 in 6. So it's not going to come off too often, but it's nice to have it just in there at the end. The -1 to wound, particularly good for dreadnoughts, against melter weapons or plasma weapons that would usually be chipping them down. It means that melter weapons wound a normal dreadnought on I'm going to double check while I'm saying it, but on a 3+ rather than a 2+, and so it wounds on a 4+ rather than a 3+, and against a Leviathan dreadnought on a 5+ rather than a 4+. So that's quite nice. The Volkite weapons not wounding Marines on as easy a time is nice. Plasma only wounds on a 3, not a 2. But really, in the case of Plasma, your opponent is after the 4-up breachings anyway, not the actual just wounds at AP4. So that's why it is one of the weaker Legion rules, because it doesn't affect enough of the game, and it relies on your opponent taking certain weapons and using them against certain units. It doesn't rely on your army, say like the Ultramarine special rule or the Imperial Fist special rule. They rely on your own army choosing to do things or choosing to build your army in a certain way or use it in a certain way. So that means you control when that benefit occurs. This is more like, and the internet sort of melted down when the Iron Warrior special rule came out, but the Iron Warrior special rule, I've really come to realise that it relies on what your opponent has done. So if your opponent hasn't built their army in a certain way, like this, your special rule isn't going to come into the game as much. Artifice of Nocturne, Unique War Gear, Creed of Vulcan, Warlord Traits. Now, your advanced reaction is in the assault phase, when an enemy player declares a charge reaction, your model composed entirely of salamanders. If the charge is successful, all models with the infantry type in the unit gain +1 weapon skill, strength, and attacks for the duration of the assault phase. However, once the combat includes the unit that made this reaction has been selected, all models roll a d6, and on a 6, 1 automatic wound has been made against your model, ignoring saves or damage mitigation. It just says saves, not invulnerable saves or armor saves, so it ignores invulnerable saves as well. So it's really quite punishing. 1 in 6 of your unit of 1 wound models is going to go down to this, and it's going to start chipping away at your characters as soon as you use it. If the charge is unsuccessful, all models in the unit which declared the reaction gain the Fearless special rule until the end of the controlling player's next turn. Do not roll to see if the wounds are suffered. If it's unsuccessful, you gain Fearless till the end of your turn. Why are you then doing something that causes you to need Fearless? It's just, that's not that much of a benefit. So this suffers from, if you're getting charged, fine, like quite good, but it's not as good as some of the reactions that say interrupt the other player's turn, like Imperial Fists charging in the movement phase, or I believe it's Blood Angels that charge in the shooting phase after a shooting attack's been made. It doesn't allow the ones that let you move your unit while doing something else, to me, are by far the best reactions, and this isn't one of them. It relies on your opponent charging a unit that isn't already going to wipe them out, or it's just very hard to find a place for this reaction being brilliant. It's again with the 1 in 6 of them taking a wound with no saves. It's a drawback on your reaction, and say any reactions which have drawbacks just get pushed further down the pile of how good that reaction is. So I don't think this is a great advanced reaction for Salamanders players to be using. Now, Warlord Traits, the weight of duty, loyalist only. The Warlord and all models in any unit is joined, and that's any unit, not just Salamanders. Gain +1 strength characteristic when locked in combat with an enemy unit that includes 1 or more models with the Fear special rule. Situational, very situational. Night Lords, some other armies, but mainly Night Lords. Furthermore, the Warlord hate and any models in the unit with the Salamander special rule gain Hatred Traitors special rule while part of the unit. It may not include Legion Destroyer Assault Squads, Mortalis Destroyer Assault Squads, Centurions with Moritats. So very much like the previous editions, Salamanders, like special rules in general, which prevented you from taking Moritats and Destroyer Squads. You get to make an additional reaction in the assault phase as well, so when your advanced reaction goes off, but that's a bit rubbish, your advanced reaction. Hatred Traitors is the amazing part of this Warlord trait, and I think it's one of the best bits about the Salamander's army, is this conference of hatred by your Warlord to that unit, because it's just so big. You're pretty much always going to be playing against traitors because, well, I've never heard of a traitor Salamander's army. I don't know whether you have. Tell me below if you are playing or you have played traitor Salamanders, but I've never seen it. So you will always be playing traitors and this will always come into it. It was really, really good. The drawback I quite like being the Destroyers, Mortalis Destroyers, Centurions with Moritat. It just is what it is. That's been part of Salamander's main rules last edition. I liked it in the main rules. It's now in here. I still like it. I don't think it's too big of a drawback, even though Moritats are quite good. They're just now competing with other things, so I've not seen as many of them in 2nd edition as you did in 1st. The extra reaction in the assault phase, quite a good reaction to have in the assault phase. Hold the line is incredible. Overwatch is incredible. It doesn't have to be used on your Warlord's unit, just if he's not removed as a casualty. So I personally really like this Warlord trait. The first bit for the Strength for Fear is just a bit of an addition. It's the Hatred Traitors that is really, really good. And if your Warlord's rocking about in a Drake unit, it's just such a good capper to what you're going to be doing with that Warlord anyway. So Promethean Will, a Warlord with this trait and all Salamanders in the detachment, gain +1 leadership when making pinning checks and reduce the effects of fear by 1. Note, fear 1 has no effect and negative modifiers by the fear special rule are reduced by 1. So basically reduces fear by 1, as it said before, to a minimum of 0. An army whose Warlord is trait may not take Destroyers, Mortalis Destroyers, Moritats. So he's again built into the Warlord trait, so if you don't take either of these two, you can actually take them. So say you take Stoic Defender from the Universal list, you get to take those Assault Squads, or those Destroyer Squads, which is nice if you don't want to take these. And you get a Shooting Phase reaction, it's sort of by the by. Shooting Phase reactions are good, as good as any other thing, I suppose. There's no particular tie, I wouldn't say, with Salamanders to any particular phase of wanting reactions. It's just how you built your army. Maybe with your Overwatch you want it in the assault phase, but again, that's how you spec in your army. It's whether or not you want to lean into the templates and flamers. Overall, I wouldn't say this trait is that good. If you play in Night Lords, take this trait. If you play in anyone else, take Hatred Traitors with the Weight of Duty. It's just much better. If you've lent into Flamers and your Overwatch reactions, it's going to be better for you. I just think Weight of Duty is by far the best Loyalist Warlord trait that the Salamanders can use. So, Redemption of Flames, traitor only. A Warlord with this trait and all models he is joined with Legion of Astartes Salamanders gain +1 to wound or armor pen made by flame or Volkite weapons used when making shooting attacks. In addition, an army whose Warlord has this trait gains an additional reaction in the assault phase. So again, leaning into the Overwatch reaction, I would say, with your flame weapons, Volkite weapons, that +1 to wound with flame or Volkite is really, really good. It's like a nice boost for Salamanders traitor players. Cue Tumbleweed rolling past. But it's a really good Warlord trait that I just don't think will be seen used that much. It's an army-wide buff, and army-wide buffs are excellent, I would say. I prefer them than Death Star style buffs. Weight of Duty is just so good. Hatred is just such a good rule. But Redemption of Flame is much better than Promethean Will anyway. So, on to Salamander's Rites of War. So, the Rite of War Covenant of Flame, you get to take Pyroclasts and Legion Tactical Support Squads that include Dragon's Breath Flamers as troops choices in the detachment and gain line. So that means you don't actually need tactical squads in your army because these can fulfill your troops choices because they won't have support. Legion Predator Squads, composed entirely of models with the Dragon Breath Cannon and Dragon Breath Heavy Flamers, can be chosen as non-compulsory troops choices in the detachment. So that's quite nice, I suppose. These tanks with flamers on are gonna have a real bad time, and it's one of the things that Salamanders with flamers on the tanks will suffer from. I wouldn't recommend using that bit of the rule at all. It's just a thing that happens to be in your Rite of War. Detachments using this Rite of War may not make a deep strike assault or any other special method of deployment which requires deep strike. However, may use subterranean or flanking. So your termites are completely fine coming in. It's a bit of a drawback, but I wouldn't say a massive one, because you can still get your squads coming in from deep strike, but subterranean assault style deep strike. May not include Destroyer Assault Squads, Legion Mortalis Destroyer Assault Squads, and Legion Centurions with the Moritat console upgrade. It's there again. Basically, now becoming more of a Legion rule, right? A detachment using this Rite of War must include a Legion Centurion, Legion Cataphractii Centurion, Tartarus with the Legion Champion console upgrade. Now, Legion Champions are now quite nice, I think. Gaining Fearless through being in a challenge is good. It will tie in slightly to your war gear, I would say, but I think challenge champions are quite good in this edition for that Fearless rule. I like it. And I like Pyroclast squads now. I do. I think they're a bit nuanced in their use, but we'll get onto them when we get to the Pyroclast section. I quite like that Rite of War, I would say. Awakening Fire. All models with both the infantry type and salamanders may be given Fierce 1 special rule for 20 points, so they become terrifying. All models with both infantry unit type and salamanders ignore all modifiers to leadership when making pinning checks. Again, good. All models with Rite of War with the Psychotub type may choose to have the Fury of the Salamander discipline instead of another psychic discipline. We'll go straight into that now, I suppose. So, Salamander Fury, in their own turn, controlling player may choose to make a psychic check. If the check is successful, all enemy models within 18 inches treat open ground as difficult and all difficult as dangerous until the start of the controlling player's next turn. However, the Psyker may not move, make shooting attacks, or charge in that turn. If it's failed, suffers perils as normal but may otherwise act normally. It's just a bit of a big drawback. It's useful in situations where you want to pull off that overwatch, you want to hold the line. If you're in some cover and you want your enemy to have to assault through cover or move through a barricade to get to you, it becomes much nicer because then 1 in 6 of your enemies are either taking a wound or dying. A lot of elite assault squads now have 2 wounds, so they might just be taking a wound. Slightly nice, but the big drawback there is the lack of movement, and I think it's a real big one. Elemental Horror, template range, strength 7, AP 4, assault 1, pinning, deflagrate, shell shock 3, psychic focus. Before making any hit rolls with this weapon, take a psychic check. If it's passed, may attack as normal using the profile shown. If failed, suffer perils of the warp, and if not removed, may attack as normal but may not use this as a weapon. So you can still, fire your bolt pistol if you fail that check. I wouldn't say failing a check is a massive deal or a deal breaker in what it's doing. It leans into using the Overwatch reaction. I definitely try and get that assault extra reaction. I would for pretty much everything with this. Covenant of Fire, you wanting that assault extra thing, which leans further into the Weight of Duty Loyalist trait or the Traitor Redemption of Flames trait. The problem with this is this discipline, Salamander Fury, is just a bit limiting because of the lack of movement. Elemental Horror, I'd say both of them are quite good with the drawback. The Elemental Horror is good, I would say. Is good, not with a drawback. The drawback there is it's just not as good as Telepathy, where you can pin and remove reactions. But nothing is as good as that. Nothing at all is as good as that psychic discipline. A detachment using this Rite of War gains a single additional non-compulsory HQ choice and may only select a Centurion with the Chaplain console upgrade. Quite nice. He gains Fear, that'll stack. It is quite good. It's quite good if you want to take a Chaplain anyway and gain Hatred to another unit if your Warlord isn't there. It's not the most brilliant in the world because you can already get Hatred traitors on your Warlord. It's just if you want to split that to multiple units. Although that could be very good depending on how you want to build your army. And again, that's something how you want to build your army, not relying on your opponent like your Legion trait is sort of forcing you to do. May not include more than one unit composed of cavalry unit subtype. Don't include apothecaries or tech marines in that one unit type. And may not include any models with Warhawk jump packs. So long as you don't want to take a load of jet bikes or bikes, not that much of a downside. But it does mean if you have got a unit of bikes, you can't put your Praetor with them on a bike. Must include at least one Centurion with the Chaplain console upgrade, so you have to do that non-compulsory Chaplain, but it's not costing you a slot at least. May not include Vulcan. I'm not story-wise the biggest fan of taking Primarchs just as a base option. I like them if there is a story reason in your game to take them. I think all Primarchs, most of them at least, are very good. In fact, I know they're very, very good. I do think Covenant of Fire is better than Awakening Flame in a lot of cases because Pyroclast squads have got such a buff now. However, Fear 1, very, very good. And Ignore modifies the pinning now that Deep Strike causes pinning, could be very useful. It's entirely up to you as a player how you want to set up your force, isn't it? Neither of them are too incredibly terrible. That's the terrible way of saying that, but there's not one that's absolutely shining. Pyroclasts with line are good, but you've got to want to take Pyroclasts, so it's not too bad. Hard to say. There's not a massive buff that just comes with having the Rite of War. You've even got to pay for it in Awakening Flame. So, on to the Armoury of the Salamanders. Now, Artifice and Flame make any model with Legion Astartes Salamanders may exchange Heavy Bolter for Dragon's Breath Heavy Flamer, or a Twin-Linked Heavy Bolter for a Twin-Linked Dragon's Breath Heavy Flamer for no cost. In addition, if you've got the Salamanders and character subtype, add the Mastercrafted special rule to any weapon that does not already have it for 10 points. Cheaper than normal add-in of Mastercrafting. It means that all your sergeants can have Mastercrafted weapons if you would like that. You've already got some rerolls coming off Hatred on a lot of them. So whether that's worth it or not is up to you. I would say I would be inclined to go with just the Hatred from the Warlord Traits, to be honest. But it is quite nice. You can add it to ranged weapons, I suppose. Multi-melters are already twin-linked. They're the dominant melter type at the moment, I would say, for a lot of people. But it is what it is. It's 10 points. It's not brilliant, but it's also not bad at all. Dragon's Breath weapons. Any model with Legion Astartes special rule may exchange a Hand Flamer for a Dragon's Breath. Basically, all your flame weapons can get changed to Salamander's flame weapons. The old Salamanders rules were that they got +1 to strength, and surprise, surprise, Salamander's Dragon's Breath flamers are all the same equivalents with +1 strength. They also all get the Dragon's Breath. Oh, and they're all AP4, that's of note. So they're ignoring anyone but basic Marines armor saves. So when Solar come out, they'll be ignoring their 4-up Void armor, if they still have 4-up Void armor. Dragon's Breath means your Wall of Death isn't a D3, it does D6. So that is actually quite nice. You just need that second assault reaction from your Warlord trait that gives you Hatred everything. You need that to gain that assault reaction, because you want to be... If you've got multiple squads with the Dragon's Breath Flamers, you want to be leaning into that assault phase reaction of Overwatch. All of this up to now, me talking about Overwatching, relies on your opponent assaulting. So lots of them, and the leaning heavily into Flamers, all relies on getting super close and them not having a shooting army. And that's where it starts to fall down a bit for Salamanders. So, on to Dragon Scale Storm Shield. Independent characters can take the shield for 15 points. If you're a Terminator, it's 10 points. Any model with Legion Astartes, Salamanders in Cataphractii or Tartarus, 10 points. It's a 5-up invulnerable if you've not already got one. Terminators and independent characters all come with invulnerables. If you've already got an invulnerable, it's +1. So 5 goes to 4, 4 goes to 3, to a maximum of 3. You can't get a second close combat weapon attack, so unlike the Ultramarines shield, which lets you get that extra attack, but it only provides a 4-up, you can go to 3-up, but can't get the extra attack. You also can't use a 2-handed weapon. You're probably using a Thunderhammer, right? And it's good. Anytime you can get to a 3-up save with anything, it becomes quite expensive on 10 Terminators, but 100 points isn't too much to gain a 3-up save, I wouldn't say. It doesn't allow you to sweep like the Imperial Fist's Vigil Storm Shield does with Tartarus Terminator. That's probably the wrong way of saying that. The right way would be your Cataphracti don't get to sweep with a 3-up save, because Cataphracti don't get to sweep. Your Tartarus can obviously sweep, and they're becoming as good as Cataphracti, but all Imperial Fist Terminators get to sweep with a 3-up, because Cataphracti don't exist in Imperial Fist armies anymore, so I've been told and experienced. So it's good, it's nice to have, it's what made Drakes really scary last edition, and it sticks around. Mantle of the Elder Drake, a single Praetor or Tartarus Praetor, Cataphracti Praetor, may take a Mantle of the Elder Drake for 35 points. It grants Battle Hardened 1. So it's more expensive than the Mantle of Ultramar by 10 points, and it grants Battle Hardened 1, which is the same as the Mantle of Ultramar, except the Mantle of Ultramar also gains immune to pinning, I believe it is. It's worse than the Ultramarines one. You used to be able to gain Eternal Warrior as a Salamander's Praetor, and that made them really scary. Battle Hardened 1 is nearly as good because you're not getting doubled out till Strength 10, but it's not quite, and it just, to me, is a bit of a slap in the face that Ultramarines get Battle Hardened 1 for cheaper and with an additional effect. But it can't be stressed how good that Battle Hardened 1 is on a Praetor. So in your challenges, you can mook people with impunity as they attempt to knock you down with a Thunderhammer or Power Fist that they thought they were just going to double you out with. So it remains good. It remains good. I'm just a bit salty that the Ultramarines got their extra 1 for cheaper. So we'll go on to Pyroclasts. 175 points, movement 7, so not heavy and not like reduced by being heavy or anything like that. Weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength toughness 4, 2 wounds veterans, 2 attacks, leadership 8 as a veteran, 2-up save. They've got an artificer armor, pyroclast flame projector, bolt pistol, basic close combat weapon, a basic close combat weapon, melter bombs, frag grenades, crack grenades. They've got the infantry type with character on the Warden. It will not die 5+, and a mantle of ash. They can take a Rhino, a Raider, or a Proteus Raider, so they can't assault out of it, but it's not really an assault-focused squad. It's a shoot, then Overwatch, and then get an extra attack with your basic close combat weapon. They can take extra Pyroclast for 30 points each. The Pyroclast Warden can take a power weapon, Thunderhammer, or Power Fist, and obviously can mastercraft one of those for an additional 10 points with the Armoury of Salamanders. So the Pyroclast Flame Projector has 2 modes, can declare which every time the weapon's used to make a shooting attack. The Dispersed is a template, strength 6, AP 4, Dragon's Breath, so overwatching with D6 shots. Focused is range 12, strength 8, AP 1, assault 1, armor bane melter. Just a melter gun basically, with that secondary flame shot. It's versatile in all situations. As I said, what you want to be doing is getting out. You don't want to be hoofing it because you've got too short range to walk across the board or even run across the board. I think you want to be in a transport, Proteus, even a Rhino. Get there fast, jump out, flame someone or melter them. Melter tends to be better just because it ignores the saves. If you can rack up enough template shots on someone, it's good. The main usage of them that I would say there is that they're a 2 wound, 2-up save melter gun squad that's got 2 attacks when they get charged. So they're actually quite scary to remove by charging them. If they get shot from across the board, that's where these fall down. So you need to have them in that transport until you're ready to pop out. Mantle of Ash gain this 5-up invulnerable against all flame, plasma, melter and volkite because they just love being within the flames. They're already getting that -1 to wound off all of those weapons. A 5-up save is nice for the invulnerable save if you're not already, like flame weapons are not going to be ignoring your armor. so you're still going to get your 2-up armor save. Plasma, when it's AP4, you'll get your 2-up armor. It's just a nice... Volkite the same. It's just a nice little addition. I like where Pyroclasts are, to be honest. It makes them quite scary. The downside is the fact that you're reliant on reactions across your entire army to take advantage of the Wall of Death rule, so that you can stop people charging you with those brutal overwatches. They potentially need to be able to do some amount of overwatches, maybe just with flame weapon, or actually just with flame weapons, I would say. Just maybe make it unlimited, the amount that Salamanders had. Something like that would maybe be the right boost to this army, because it's so reliant on the reactions that you don't have enough of to make that real of a difference. And also, they're close range, so something to help them get there would also be of benefit. Though a Raider, a Rhino obviously helps this squad. Raider in particular. Then Firedrakes, Terminator squad, 250 points. Movement 6, weapon skill 5, which is obviously what you need on a Nails Terminator squad now. 2 wounds as a Terminator, 2 attacks, leadership 9, so 1 better than normal Terminators. They don't come with shields, but who doesn't have a Firedrake squad with shields? They've got Relentless, Bulky 2, Stubborn, Forgecraft of Nocturne, It Will Not Die 5+, and Favoured of Vulcan. You're going to have them in either a Raider, or any size of squad may take a Spartan, so a Spartan if it's over 6 or over 7, I suppose. You can get 5 additional Firedrakes. Any model may take a Thunderhammer for 10 points. Every single member of this squad should have a Thunderhammer. Don't even look at the other options unless you're really pinched on points. If you're leaving Power Swords or Power Axes on this squad, check your life choices is how I'm going to phrase that. Any model may change the combi weapon for a combi flamer or combi melter. It's not massively why you want this squad. And you may exchange combi bolters for Dragon Scale Storm Shields for 5 points. Necessary and cheaper than everywhere else. Definitely take that. I really like the Stubborn on this squad. Favoured of Vulcan, you may take it as a command squad basically. Forgecraft of Nocturne, reroll all failed to hit rolls of 1 for weapons with melee. So against normal squads of weapon skill 4, or normal Terminator squads even, you're re-rolling half of your misses, because there's only 1 or 2 misses, you're re-rolling half of them. It's good. If you were creating a star with your Warlord, you'll already have Hatred everything. Do you need to create a star with your Warlord? I don't know. These can be very successful on their own. They're just such dick kickers that they can be incredibly successful by just being a Firedrake squad on their own, rocking about with 3-up saves and Thunderhammers. It's really up to you whether you put your Warlord in there. And the reroll is really nice if you don't have that Hatred everything. It's good. They're good. They remain really, really scary. And this is one of the things. The Pyroclasts, I think, are in a good place, or quite a good place right now, if you can get them there and you have the reaction allotment. Firedrakes remain incredibly scary due to that 3-up save. It's just a shame that Fists can now sweep with a 3-up invulnerable, and Firedrakes obviously can't, or Salamanders can't. And that is all. You've got no unique characters as a Salamander in the main book. You've got them in the Legacies PDF. So it is worth saying I will be returning to all of the special characters and Legacies units that I've missed across the entire series in one consolidated video. So watch out for that if you want the Legacies units for Salamanders. So, Vulcan. We get Vulcan, 465 points, so like Primarch level of points. Movement 7, weapon skill 7, strength toughness 7, 6 wounds, initiative 5, 6 attacks, leadership 10, 2-up save. He's got the Draken Scale, Dawnbringer, his hammer, the Furnace's Heart, Dragon's Breath Heavy Flamer, so he's strength 6, AP 4 Heavy Flamer, that he's just a regular Salamanders thing. Frag Grenades, Master of the Legion, It Will Not Die 4+, Sire of the Salamanders, Loyalist. Sire of the Salamanders, All models with both infantry and Legion Astartes Salamanders gain stubborn. In addition, you gain an additional shooting reaction. Stubborn is really, really good. Really good. But I just don't like that shooting phase reaction as a Salamanders player. So, yeah, it is what it is. Stubborn, as I say, really, really good. Not getting the negatives to your leadership tests when you're taking them is good. His profile's solid. He's got the Draken Scale, 2-up save, 3-up invulnerable. Reroll failed armor saves for wounds inflicted by flame or volkite weapons. 3-up is obviously a very good invulnerable save. It's not as good as Gulliman's 4-up with a reroll, the first failed. Reroll failed armor saves for flame or volkite is a little bit by the by, because flame or volkite is only really wounding him on 6s anyway. So it's very unlikely that you're going to chip off Vulcan with those. I suppose when you're allocating wounds, you allocate them to Vulcan. If any wounds come in, any rerolls failed. It's just, that's not that big of a rule. The 3-up invulnerable save is where it's at. And it makes him very survivable, especially with his it will not die 4-up. Dawnbringer, strength 10, AP 1, mastercrafted, 2-handed, armor bane melee, instant death. So regardless of battle hardened, he's wounding you on a 2, instant death in you. And that is really good. I think it's not got unwieldy, and it's doubling people out and making people an instant death in people, as well as the doubling out. It brings it into all sorts of situations. Like his Castellax, it's got instant death. Battle hardened 1 even, it's strength 10 to just double them out. It comes into it all the time. And if you really needed to hit a tank with it, it's armor bane melee. The Furnace's Heart is his pistol, range 18, strength 7, AP 2, pistol 1, lance, shock pulse, burst D6. If this weapon hits, instead of 1 hit, its number of hits equal to the D6. It's AP 2, he's got his Primarch precision shots, is very, very good. Lance on a strength 7 weapon is pretty standard. It's like Darkfires from Heresy 1. Shock pulse is alright, but really, strength 7, AP 2, you will be mowing down from people. All of this is... Vulcan is again a very simple Primarch to go through. He is very combat focused, he's not too Legion buffy focused, he's a singular character who's a beat stick. I don't actually like his Warlord trait as much as the ones that give you assault phase reactions. But that's not why he's here. He's here to be a Primarch and bashing people about. It's just a shame that it doesn't lean into the Salamanders special rules of the Overwatch for the Flamers and things like that. And that's it really. He's going to be able to go against most other Primarchs and come out really well with at least a fighting chance against them. He doesn't have Brutal on his hammer, which is one of the things that slightly lets him down in those Primarch fights, despite having the 3-up invulnerable. Now, I believe Ferrus does. Perturabo on his unwieldy hammer has Brutal 2. And that Brutal 2 just magnifies the wounds that are caused. And it slightly lets him down a bit. He's still a Primarch. He's still very good. He's still in the mix of Primarchs that are like combat Primarchs. He's just not the top of that list because of his lack of Brutal. And that's I think that is a good summary of how Salamanders play in general in this edition. Salamanders are perfectly playable in the mix. They're just not quite there. They're a bit lagging behind. I like the Legion. I like how what they're attempting to do with the Legion, with the flame weapons, melter weapons. It fits really nicely, as always. It's just, it slightly pales next to some of the really dominant Legions where their Primarchs are brutal. They can shoot at long range or get into combat really reliably and just do loads of damage when they're there. They're just in this sort of state of limbo with the Salamanders that I think you as players can make work. It's just going to be hard to do it. And hopefully they get a buff. Hopefully they really do. If I missed anything in this rundown, that you want to let, like with going through the units and stuff like that, please be a massive help and let us know below. But if you want to get more of a rundown, check the comments below, because I imagine people will let their strategies be known as Salamanders players to just get involved in a conversation, because that's what this needs. We need to come up with strategies for Salamanders to just do that little bit better against other legions. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTubey stuff. It helps to let me know that you guys like this sort of content, so that I'll make more of it and prioritize it over the other things that you don't particularly like. And if you really want to support the channel that extra little bit, there is a Patreon link below, as well as an affiliate link to the War Office. The Patreon link will get you access to Discord for further discussion with the Patreon members and members of the campaigns that I've been running in the local area. So thank you for watching. Real massive thanks. It's been about 6 months of doing these videos and I've enjoyed every second of it. So I will catch you later.